Narcissist, narcissism, narcissistic. I'd like to start today by saying that the next time I choose a research topic, it won't be one containing difficult to pronounce words such as those. My name is Kelly Bauer, and my topic for discussion today focuses on the interpersonal consequences of narcissism. Specifically, I'd like to address whether or not a long-term relationship with someone with a narcissistic personality is possible. Today I'll share information on the definition of narcissism, research done on the effects of this personality type on interpersonal relationships, and how it is that narcissists can appear to be quite charismatic and charming at first, but over time their appeal not only wears off, but goes in the opposite direction. The title of the article I read was "Why Are Narcissists So Charming at First Sight? Decoding the Narcissism Popularity Link at Zero Acquaintance." According to the American Psychiatric Association, 1994, narcissism can be defined as a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, self-focus, and self-importance. Other traits of a narcissist include an inflated but fragile ego, being overly self-involved, conceited, and selfish. Since this is such an important subject to me personally, I moved ahead a bit in Dr. C's textbook to Chapter 4, which discusses self-concept and interpersonal communication. This chapter addresses self-concept and self-esteem, along with many other characteristics that make up each of our personalities. In this article, among other things, the researchers wanted to know which facets of narcissism lead to popularity at first sight, and which physical appearances and behavioral cues mediate the effect of narcissism on popularity at first sight. So the article includes information from a 1998 study by Paul Huss et al. That directly analyzed the consequences of narcissism on interpersonal relationships. The experiment took place at the beginning of an introductory session for freshman students studying psychology. 7 consecutive weeks of 20-minute meetings took place, and a topic to be discussed was assigned each week. For example, the positive and negative effects of self, worries, and concerns. On evaluation by the students after the first meeting, narcissistic students were evaluated as more agreeable, conscientious, open, competent, entertaining, and well-adjusted by their peers. Those who were flashy dressers, had good posture, and appeared socially adept were those who were well-liked. As time went on in these meetings, however, the popularity of the at first charming narcissist declined, and by the end of the 7-week period, after about 2.5 hours of contact, the narcissists were evaluated as unpopular. Paulhaus et al. Concluded that different factors may explain this reversal of the impression of narcissist on others over time. For example, discrepancies between their self-promotional claims and their actual behavior, and the lack of sensitivity to feedback from their peers, or arrogant, hostile, self-absorbed, and defensive behaviors. I chose my relationship with my 38-year-old son, an MD, an author of 3 books, an award-winning podcast producer, and the father of my 2 wonderful grandchildren. I chose this relationship and this subject to try to see if there was any hope for us to reconcile. However, I don't believe there is any further communication to be had. While I gave birth to my son and wasn't drawn in by him, after reading about narcissistic traits, having lived the trepidation and hurt on each encounter with my son since his teens, and knowing how negatively these traits have in fact impacted our relationship, I can't continue to forgive abusive behavior. I've learned from this article that the often threatening, arrogant, and manipulative nature of these personalities is not likely to change. Sad. In trying to answer my thesis question regarding whether or not a long-term relationship with someone with a narcissistic personality is possible, I don't believe so. I learned that people will see through all of the initial charm, and that over time the less desirable maladaptive traits of these personality types will come creeping to the surface. Narcissism. Narcissists. Narcissistic. Perhaps I can now pronounce these words with more ease, but that won't change the research findings and the conclusion that attempts at meaningful long-term relationships with a narcissist are probably in vain. Pun intended. Thank you.